guys, welcome to the American Dream Live with Todd Peterson. I did it. We went back to the music intro. I had to take care of one more thing getting the show ready. So I was like, well, let's fire it off at the time that we're supposed to. And by supposed to, I mean we start at a different time every Tuesday and Thursday. But welcome aboard, folks. We're there. I am there. If you want to call it radicalization, call it radicalization. Labels, I'm not really worried about anymore. All I know is whatever ideas I'm holding right now that are radical, they need to be normalized. If we're going to live in a prosperous, thriving, safe, just, healthy society, whatever is considered radical today needs to be normal tomorrow. And the last week has provided perfect examples of all of this. I'm going to break it down. We're going to talk the trans shooter because now there is an epidemic of trans terrorists in America. There's no denying this anymore. And isn't it funny? I got clips of Jacob Frey in a second here. Other talking heads on the left said the same thing. Whenever a tranny shoots up kids, do you notice how they get mad that you noticed it's a trans? They're not upset. They'll do their fake tears, of course, because they're really good at faking this stuff. They'll pretend they're sad that these kids got shot. They're going to be shocked how this happened in a society. If only we took everyone's guns away, that would keep these kids safe. They never reflect on their evil position that maybe men shouldn't be convinced that they're women. And when a normal, healthy society rejects that idea that now somehow I'm responsible for these kids getting killed here. So we're talking tranny shooter here. And we got to go there's no more thing as an absolute Second Amendment right. There's no more thing as just you being a tranny and getting away with it anymore. We need to have a conversation as a nation, whether or not we're going to continue down this path. We're going to talk about flag burning. I've been really, again, I'm going to say the word radicalized, but my position today, if it's radical, should just be normal tomorrow. I'm going to make the case here why flag burning, we'll use that as a proxy for a lot of other rights and freedoms and privileges that you think you deserve to have just by breathing in America. We need to normalize the idea that, no, you can't do whatever you want. I'm not a free speech absolutist anymore. I am certainly not a Second Amendment absolutist anymore. There need to be constraints. We have been swimming in the cesspool of ideas that you can do whatever you want. And then when we say you can do whatever you want, that means we allow communists and demons and bad actors and terrible ideas to somehow participate in this free market of ideas and policy prescriptions. And that's just not working for a healthy country anymore. So no, if you call it authoritarian, call it radical. I'm here to make America as great as possible for the best people in it. I'm not worried about the lunatics on the fringe. I'm not worried about the criminals. You gave up your opportunity to enjoy functioning in the society when you made your decisions here. So yes, I want to normalize the radicalization that I am undergoing, that I have undergone. I'm there, folks. That the America First movement is experiencing as well. Donald Trump's victory already shifted so many national conversations. It already shifted the Overton window on what we're allowed to think about, what we're allowed to discuss. Immigration, that's going to be the third peg on my stool today of things that we just need to normalize here. But when you look back to Donald Trump's election victory in 2024, about a month later, H-1B visas kind of became a thing. Vivek Ramaswamy got booted out of the Trump administration before it even began because he decided to deride heritage white Americans for being lazy, incompetent, that we'll all succeed when more Indians come across and take over all of our tech jobs. Vivek Ramaswamy booted out. And then all of a sudden, instead of talking about just illegal immigration, Donald Trump ran on securing the border and deporting violent illegals. That's it. And a month after he got elected, now all of a sudden America's talking about maybe all forms of immigration are bad. Maybe we shouldn't fire Americans and then hire cheaper H-1B visa tech workers instead. Maybe we shouldn't have 55 million visas issued by this country. And then you're going to get a fact check from the libs. They're like, they don't all live here. Doesn't matter. We have 55 million visas issued. Illegal immigration, yeah, that's a problem. The bigger problem in America is that immigration is present at all. I want to help you understand why the radical positions that I am talking about today simply need to be normalized. If you want to have a country that you grew up in, that you've enjoyed, you want your kids to have the same opportunity, folks, then let's break it down. Free speech, we got to put constraints on that. Second Amendment, we got to put constraints on that. And I'm not talking like the communist constraints where we're going to grab everybody's guns. We're very specific. If you're a tranny, if you're mentally unwell, you no longer get access to firearms. So if you want to call that a gun grab move, by all means. But I get all of these replies here. My Twitter was blowing up today. It was blowing up yesterday because I went down this rabbit hole of like, no, we shouldn't be allowed to just burn flags anymore. This is not healthy for our society. Who benefits when you burn flags? I'll break all that down as well. And then the last thing we're going to get to, if you missed this story, this was out of Scotland. 2 young girls, actually the story says that they're now 3, but the video shows 2 young girls defending themselves from a would-be sexual assaulter, an immigrant no less, and they got arrested for brandishing weapons defending themselves. I've got a corollary story here. There's a video coming out of the New York City subway system where a black man with a knife is posturing and then moving towards a white dude with a skateboard. The guy with the skateboard defends himself, bonks the dude on the head, and he gets arrested for assault. So again, if you are not on board with where I'm going today, I want to convince you by the end of the show. I have no time idea today. I don't know where we're going with the show today. I want to cover these stories. If it takes 20 minutes, it takes 20 minutes. If it takes an hour and a half, it takes an hour and a half. Because this is a really important topic. Let's dive into the videos here. But again, folks, if you're just tuning in, we need to normalize the America First radicalization that's taking place right now. No, you are not harboring bad ideas. If you want to have a country for your kids and for your grandkids, this radicalization of today just needs to be normal for tomorrow. And I do think J.D. Vance has tapped into the zeitgeist. If we have time, we're going to talk about Jen Psaki's just horrendous tweet about the shooting, by the way, that occurred in Minneapolis yesterday, mocking Christians for praying. They said it's time to, there's no room for prayer and thoughts anymore. These kids were praying and they got shot. Like absolutely vile comments. And by the way, do you think if Muslims were praying to Allah for comfort after a MAGA hat-wearing white dude shot up a mosque, do you think she would be mocking prayers? Or is it, again, just a targeted attack on Christianity specifically? Christianity, right-wing coded for these deluded Dems, these communists out there. They see Christians, they automatically hate them, and they have to push them down every step of the way. But J.D. Vance's comments to that just blasted her, and I think J.D. Vance is going to be our first America First radical that is going to be normalizing so many things that have to change in this country. But let's get into it, folks. I think we've got to start with the shooting yesterday in Minneapolis. The absolute tragedy. I don't need to introduce any more adjectives. I'm not going to cover the story so much. Everyone is aware of what's happening here. And we got Jason tuning in the chat. Jason, thanks for tuning in today. Democrats hate Christians. Yes, they do. Democrats represent the inversion of Christianity, the rejection of Christianity. Shoot, I should have had a tweet ready to go here about transgenderism in general, how it's simply a reflection of Satanism. If I can fan that during the video clip, I'll play it. But yes, Jason, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for commenting. Democrats do hate Christianity. And again, people often say, if you're worshiping God, then you don't have time to worship the state. You reject the state. That's certainly true here. But Democrats just push evil. And I have made the claim, Jason, I'm glad you said this because it'll just be an opportunity for my little talking piece that I introduce every single week. I have made the claim, I stand by it, by the way, and every day it's just more and more validated. Democrats, every single thing that they believe in, every policy they push is a reflection of evil. There is not a single policy, not a single thought Democrats hold today that is at best rational or at worst even good for society, individuals here. Everything Democrats believe and everything they do is evil. It's evil. Yes, they hate Christianity, but it is so much more than that. They want to promote their actual evil here. We have to reject that. And part of how we reject that is by normalizing, again, the radicalization that I'm going to be talking about today. Because if I had done this podcast, let's say even 2 years ago, all the normie conservative Republican voters would be like, yeah, I don't like what Biden's doing, but this guy Todd over here, this is insane. I am having this conversation today, and I think most of the audience, I'm going to count Jason in that. Jason, I'm speaking for you here. By the way, tune in tomorrow, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern with Jason, my podcast business partner. Jason Roberts and I going live at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern on Freedom from the Press podcast. We'll certainly have more to talk about in these stories, but we're there. Everyone is just like, yeah, this makes sense. Trannies shouldn't get guns. You shouldn't be allowed to burn and flag in America. Yeah, we should deport all of the legal immigrants as well, revoke their visas, and let's get back to making America great for Americans. Folks, the Overton window has shifted. The conversations in our culture are shifting. This podcast, if you watch it back 5 years from now, I think it's going to sound tame, and I am here for it. I am hoping that this podcast in a couple of years sounds tame. When J.D. Vance is running for president in 2028, he will be citing everything I'm saying here and saying, folks, we tried this classic liberal experiment. We tried libertarian notions of free speech and absolute gun rights. And it turns out that was an absolute failure because in order for a society to function, in order for it to even allow for, I'll say libertarian ideals, these classical liberal ideals, then everybody has to be on the same page. If we as a society were, number one, homogenous and number two, Christian, it might work out. It might work out where we all say, look, we all believe in gun rights. We don't want the government to have a monopoly on force. We want citizens to be allowed to defend themselves. That would work in a homogenous Christian society. but we're not there. We're a multicultural society. We're a diverse society. Diversity is absolutely not our strength. It doesn't work when you have blank slatism saying everybody's the same, everybody has the same ideas, and you import the third world. You indoctrinate Democrats, and they weaponize your freedoms against you. So all these people out there, all these people on the right, and this is really whom I'm speaking to today. I love it when I have my Democrat voting family members and friends tune into the show, listen to the show, never comment on the show. I'm still waiting for one of those like social gatherings, kids' birthday parties. One of my Dem normie friends out there saying, Todd, I caught your podcast yesterday and I have questions for you. That will never happen. A Democrat asking a question to like better understand your position. That is correct, by the way. That will never happen. Their worldview is too fragile for them to ask questions and poke holes in it. They just have to accept that Trump is Hitler, Trump is bad, and everything Todd is saying is outrageous. But I'm here to change minds, folks. But I'm really here to change the minds of Republican voters. Again, the comment section that I was attacked yesterday. I was called all sorts of names. I'm here for it. But I was called all sorts of names because I was like, no, we can't have flag burning anymore. You should go to prison. I think 1 year is too generous. Again, my complaints with Trump, it's never far enough. You burn a flag in America to protest how much you hate America. I say lifetime in prison, or I would fly you anywhere in the world of your choice. Just leave my country. Whatever removes you from society. If that's behind bars or if that's in some foreign land, I could care less. And honestly, it'd be cheaper to fly these people somewhere one time than house them in prison for the rest of their lives. But that's where I'm at. Why should I share a society with people that do not respect my society, love my society? They complain about the norms all day long and they violate the norms every chance they get. And this show's not designed to be like, well, here's how Democrats are hypocrites. Here's how Democrats, they took your freedoms and then they decided to squash your freedoms, whether it was a lockdown, whether it was riots, whether it was like a white guy trying to be like, seems like affirmative action is racist against me. Sit down, white guy, just take the race communism that's coming down the pike here. So I really have no patience for Democrats screaming about that. But when it comes to Republicans, these principal Republicans, I am so over this. I am so over Republicans saying like, we need to be better than that. The Constitution hasn't changed. My argument is that the landscape has changed. Yeah, maybe 20 years ago, burn a flag, like people didn't really think about it, but the message resonates differently today. We are not the same country we were 20 years ago. And we have seen now how people just abuse the heck out of these ideas. And then why is it, of course, that if you burn a pride flag or do a burnout on a street, they're like, you will go to prison for a hate crime for the rest of your life. Where are these voices speaking out about rights to burn out on the road when some woke city mayor decides to paint a pride flag on the road here? Those people are silent. But then suddenly you're like, you can't burn a flag. And they're like, no, but everyone has rights. It doesn't work that way anymore. All right, we got to get into this. We got to get into the video clips here. I'm going to start with, we got Jacob Frey. So Jacob Frey is commenting on the shooting here. And again, my position is very simple. I am not a Second Amendment absolutist anymore. I think people should be denied the privilege of owning a firearm. Felons, great place to start. Trannies. And there's no such thing as a transgender, by the way. There is a thing as a man, there's a thing as a woman, and there's a thing as mentally unstable men and women living absolute lies. People that use the word transgender, our website, the American Tribune, the ChristianTribune.com, we use the word transgender because we rely on ad revenue, Google ad revenue. So we have to couch language and pretend to play their game. On this podcast, when you're out in the real world, there is no such thing as a transgender. There is a man and there is a woman, and those people are confused. There is no third category. There's no such thing as a transgender. And so when I use the word transgender, just understand that I am referring to a mentally unwell man, a mentally unstable and unhinged woman, because there's no third category of human being. God did not pluck a rib from Adam to create Eve and then take some like femur from Eve to create a transgender. There are men and there are women. But I will use the word transgender because that's the word that our society is now aware of. So if I use that word, just understand that I do not believe in it whatsoever. But Frey talking about the transgender community, the assault on the community, because don't you know, when a shooter murders children, we should all be terrified of the backlash against the terrorist trans community. And it is a terrorist community nowadays. There is no denying the fact that these trannies are all potential terrorists. Every single one of them convinced that society hates them and wants them eradicated. How else would you expect them to respond than to shoot up innocent Christian kids? Because again, Christianity is coded for the right wing. They see Christianity as a threat to their very existence, and they're going to eliminate that threat so that they can continue to thrive. And by the way, thrive, have you ever met, I'm still waiting to come across a healthy, stable, transgender individual. They always say they're going to be happier, living their best lives, if only they get affirmed. only they chop off their genitals, if only undergo a surgery or go on hormones. Have you ever met someone that's happier on the other side as a transgender? Maybe, just maybe, the issue is not their genitals or their identity. Maybe it's something with them. And I am fully on board with getting these people help. Number one, I don't want them on the streets murdering any more kids. Number two, I'm not here to push people down. If you think you're a woman in a man's body, that's a serious problem, and I feel bad for you. But the prescription is not to wear a dress and take hormones and cut things off. The prescription is to go into an asylum and get the help that you need. SSRIs, not the answer. Actual help. You need to go get help. Go find God. Go remove yourself from society for a little bit. Get off social media. Stop consuming and absorbing all the lies here. I want these people to get help. As much for my safety as their own well-being. There are too many people in the world and in this country for me to care about. I have myself. I have my kids. I have my family. That's really it. And I got my social network, my friends, whatever, my business partners. I don't have time to care about everybody. You shouldn't care about everybody either. Care about your immediate family, and the world's already a better place. But I certainly care about them more than Democrats do. The Democrat solution is to trans kids, groom kids, just do awful things with children, convince people of these lies, and then when they go out and shoot people, they don't care. They don't care about the victims that they're creating. They don't care about the terrorists that they're creating. They don't care about helping these people. They say, you're a woman, and that's fine with that. They care not at all. They know they're making these people's lives worse. Again, not a single transgender that I know, a man or a woman that is simply confused, is ever better off when they go down that path. A lot of people wake up from their stupor. They're like, well, that didn't work. Turns out I'm still miserable, depressed, upset, angry. It turns out it wasn't the genital thing. It turns out there's a lot of underlying problems here beneath the surface. Never a happy one. Again, if transgenderism were a thing, and if we just affirmed these people, and I don't know about you folks, I see a lot of affirmation in society. I see us on the right rightfully denouncing this as insane, but there's no shortage of affirmation. If you're a trans, I know what you do. You consume just echo chamber social media content, and a lot of it's angry, by the way. This is also not an accident. You would think if you were trans, you'd go find your little support groups. You would find people in your social network that would support you and affirm you and make you feel loved. And then you'd live your best life. You're like, well, I was told I'd be happy, so I'm going to go out and be happy. But they can't be happy because this is, again, it's not about being trans per se. It's about consuming content that makes them angry. To be a Democrat, if you go on the social media feeds, if you go on CNN, MSNBC, if you put yourself in the world of a Dem for a second, you are constantly fed rage bait. Instead of being like, live your best self, live your best self. It's like, you need to understand that your existence is under assault. And they just convince these people to not only be transgender, but then to be just extremely angry as well. All right, folks, a lot of preambling, a lot of talking. I had a lot of ideas today. Didn't sleep last night. Par for the course, 2 young kids. Again, I asked on the podcast last week if anyone had young kids and they were sleeping great, sleeping through the night, and then all of a sudden they have these like nightmares. I think it's a phase. Kiddos slept fine the other night here, but we're wet in our bed. We're having nightmares. I'm like, kids, Todd's got a show at 8:45 here. You got to sleep all night. But Jacob Frey here, let's start with the shooting. Jacob Frey gives a press conference. He mocks people for praying. He's mad that people are praying to Christian gods. And again, the point would be made if a white straight male in a MAGA hat shut up a mosque. Do you think Jacob Frey would be mocking the Muslims for appealing to Allah for comfort? Absolutely not. This is a uniquely Christian thing here. But he's mad that you're praying. He's mad that people still have guns. By the way, Minneapolis, where Jacob Frey is mayor, has extremely hard laws, rules in place. Did you know that in Minnesota, by the way, folks, they always say it's so easy to get a gun. I live in Minnesota. I got my handgun certificate in 2020 so I could defend myself from the COVID BLM mobs. A 7-day waiting period. Had to go to the sheriff's office in my county, drop some stuff off, do the whole thing, finally go pick it up in the store. Like, to get a gun in Minnesota, it's already challenging. That was a handgun. The rifles are a little bit easier. But then Minneapolis goes a step further, I think, with their waiting periods. So there's already laws in place. And they'll always be like, well, the law in somewhere else is easier, so they just go and get it somewhere else. And that's always their foot in the door to bring in the national gun grabbing scene here. I have an idea. If you're a transgender individual, if you are a mentally unwell man or woman, then automatically no gun for you. And I know the left would have a hard time with this because they would love to stop people from getting guns, but they also don't want to, like, not affirm your identity. So that's a rock and a hard place for Dems. But the reality is they just want to take guns from law-abiding MAGA patriots. That's it. They don't care if gangbangers have guns. They don't care if the trannies have guns. They simply don't want you and me in this show to have guns. That's really all this comes down to. You and I are not shooting up churches, but they want to take our guns. Trannies are shooting up churches and schools. They don't want to take their guns. We could have had this conversation when the Nashville, the Covenant school shooter took place. What was that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now? We could have had a conversation then. Maybe trannies shouldn't have access to firearms. We can have that conversation again today. Maybe trannies shouldn't have access to firearms. Turns out we are not shooting up schools, churches, buildings, wherever. We are law-abiding, tax-paying, good Americans that own guns for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's hunting. Maybe it's recreation. Maybe it's self-defense like I did. Growing family, chaos in Minnesota. Nope, I'm not playing that game. I'm getting multiple guns. But I'm not using them in a bad way. I haven't even touched my handgun. I used to go to the range. It was a good time. I haven't touched my gun in years now. Haven't even looked at it. Kids don't even know I have it. That's how it should be right now. But this tranny had a gun, and then they decided to murder children with it. All right, let's listen to Frey.
Right in front of the microphone. Let's listen.
There are no words that can capture the horror and the evil of this unspeakable act. Children are dead.
I've said on Twitter, so Tim Walz, actually, this is how stupid it all is. Tim Walz actually had a big tweet go out, and he says, my thoughts and prayers go out to the victims. So then the messaging, cognitive dissonance this is what Democrats thrive on. They want you to hold competing ideas at the same time and just make you go crazy. Being a Democrat literally means you are insane. Because you see Tim Walz's tweet, governor of Minnesota, and he says, my thoughts and prayers are with the family. Gwen and I. It's always Gwen and I with Tim Walz, by the way. And then you got Jacob Frey here mocking the idea of prayer. Two leading Democrats in Minnesota saying the opposite thing. And as a Democrat, you basically consume it both. And you're like, I agree with Tim Walz right now. And then you hear Frey talking. You're like, I agree with Frey right now, too. Absolutely wild here. The correct answer, of course, is Tim Walz's position is dishonest. And I said Tim Walz doesn't care that kids got killed. I think Tim Walz is actually upset. I think Frey is upset that it wasn't Muslim kids shot up, because then they could run with that narrative forever. There's so much Islamophobia in Minnesota. We will now steal everybody's guns. I honestly think that's true. I have a story. I'll tell the story, then we'll get back into Frey. When I was working in North Minneapolis, I worked with Minneapolis Public Schools for 1 year. For 1 year, my wife and I had moved back home. So I was like, I need a job. So I'm going to go work in North Minneapolis because it pays well. It's a foot in the door, whatever. On the first day of school, we have two Hmong kids get in a fight. Not seriously injured, but any fight could result in a serious injury. It's middle school. These kids are big. But the leadership team in my school that I was a part of celebrated it. They celebrated a fight in my school, and they said immediately, I'm glad it wasn't black kids. I'm glad it was the Hmong kids, because that'll kind of even out our racial disparities. With a straight face, not joking, they celebrated Hmong boys potentially hurting themselves simply so they could report that Asians got in a fight and it wasn't black kids again. This is true, and it applies the same thing here. I guarantee Frey and Walz are sad that it wasn't Muslim kids that got shot, because then they would be able to run to the media and they would say, anti-Muslim bigotry, this MAGA white American philosophy is getting kids killed. That is absolutely how they would have positioned this. I think they are sad that they're sad that Christian kids got killed, but not for the reason that you and I are sad that Christian kids got killed. They're sad that they can't weaponize the narrative. They would totally be fine. And Democrats do this after every tragedy. The bodies aren't even cold yet, and they will grandstand about gun control. We're going to get to Frey's comments here. He's mad that you're noticing it was a tranny that shot up the schools. And I say tranny derogatorily, knowing that there is no such thing as a trans, by the way. Again, they're just men and women, and some of them are confused, and they think they're in a third category, and they're not. There's no third category. But he's mad that it was a tranny that did it, and that you're noticing. He's more concerned about the optics and the vitriol that will be aimed at the transgender community. And to be clear, folks, my vitriol, my hatred, my anger is not directed at any individual. My heart goes out to you. If I were king, I would say, if you identify in such a way, I will force you against your will to go get treatment, and I will make you a better human being. I will help you see the error of your ways. I will make you healthy and stable again. We will get you treatment. That is much more caring than how a Jacob Frey approaches this and says, I see you, I validate you. It's okay if you murder kids because society is evil and it hates you and it wants to eradicate you. No, I don't want to eradicate any individual, but I want to eradicate this philosophy. The transgender philosophy is evil to its core. It targets young kids, which is already an abomination, and then it creates these terrorists because you tell them every single day society will never accept them. And what do you expect them to do with that information? And then I had a tweet go out. Peggy Flanagan, Minnesota's lieutenant governor, she wore a shirt, it was 2 years ago, I think, when Tim Walz signed legislation making us a trans refuge state. Well, how did that work out? Trans refuge state. We welcomed a terrorist, a child murdering demon into our state. And she wore a shirt, and I said she should be charged as an accessory to this crime here for encouragement. It had a knife, and it said, "Fight for trans rights," or "We will fight." There is no other way to interpret that if we don't get our way, we will hurt you. So again, I said Peggy Flanagan on Twitter needs to be charged as an accessory to the crime here. They are openly inciting and encouraging violence against those that oppose the trans agenda. All right, we got to get to Frey. I have so many thoughts today. We're half an hour in and we barely played a video clip.
There are families that have a deceased child. You cannot put into words the gravity, the tragedy, or the absolute pain of this situation. We are a Minneapolis family. But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis.
All right, I just have to pause for a second. Everything he said here is meaningless. It means nothing. He's using words. He is also talking about wrap your arms around them, love them. So he will deride prayer in a second here. But have you noticed that he's basically saying the same thing as his own secular religion? Love them, wrap your arms around them, give them everything you need. I don't know. Can I pray for them? Can they find solace knowing that their child is at least with God now? Or have God help them navigate the challenges that they're going through, the absolute tragedy they've experienced? So he is saying that, but again, it's through his secular religious lens, not the Christian lens here. And again, worth pointing out, Frey would not be saying that if it were a Muslim mosque that got shot up.
Families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying.
All right, there it is. This is the comment that Frey got absolutely smashed for. Jen Psaki, same thing. She said, I'm tired of thoughts and prayers. They were praying already. Their prayers didn't help them. A complete mockery of the Christian faith here. Jacob Frey, he wasn't mad until he got to that sentence right there. They were already praying. And of course, when they say this, that we don't want your thoughts and prayers anymore, number one, this is just a flat out lie. Anyone that's ever experienced a tragedy in their own life and received outpouring of support to them, or if you know someone that went through a grief and you provided support to them, do you know what you say to them? You say, my condolences. I'm so sorry for your loss. I will be praying for you. What else are you supposed to do? You literally can't do anything else except acknowledge that I am here. I see your pain. Let me know if you need anything. I am with you on this. That is literally what you do. So number one, it's already a lie. But number two, when Democrats say I'm tired of thoughts and prayers, really this is just a segue. It's couching language for we need gun control. We need extreme gun control. Not even buyback, just confiscation outright. That's all he is saying here. Whenever these shootings take place, they say thoughts and prayers don't solve the gun issue. What they really just want to say is we want to take every last American's gun. And here's where I will meet them in the middle here. I agree. Thoughts and prayers aren't enough. What we need is strict gun control measures to prevent any tranny from ever having access to a firearm again. Not a single transgender individual, except, let me back this up as well. There are some trannies that need guns. In Jacob Frey's Minneapolis, I should pull up this story here. There was a tranny that got assaulted by two black guys on our light rail transit system because it turns out the black community does not care for trannies. And so when they see trannies, they brutally assault them. In the headlines, let me see if I have this. Sorry, folks. I want to pull this story up really fast here. All right. So the headline from CBS News, this is from November 2024. 2 transgender women attacked in downtown Minneapolis, advocates say. The community came together Sunday to support 2 transgender women who say they were attacked near a light rail station in Minneapolis. Yeah, so-and-so, community leader with Trans Movement for Liberation. So the 2 trans women were attacked by a group of men at the light rail station after one of the men used transphobic slurs. All right, no one came to help them. In fact, they said people were cheering the attackers on while they were getting beaten. Does that sound like something the black community would do, by the way? Oh, cheer them on. Oh, you get them. Transphobic slur coming your way. Boom, beat up the trannies. Like, the black community absolutely despises trannies. That was Jacob Frey's Minneapolis. So that was a story from just last year. They never told you who the assailants were. It was a group of black thugs because that's who was doing these things. Jacob Frey did not speak out about that. He didn't say anything about who did it. He acknowledged that there's transphobia, but again, they didn't acknowledge who's doing the transphobic attacks here. Sorry, that was neither here nor there, but it's just so dishonest. Just so dishonest. But they don't want thoughts and prayers because they want gun control. That's all they want. They want to steal your guns here. But again, I'll meet you in the middle. Trannies might need guns because I referenced that story to be like, well, those 2 trannies, if they had concealed carry permits, that they should be allowed to have a concealed carry permit. How about you just open carry and no permit required because this is America? If they had firearms on them, those black thugs would have thought twice about assaulting them. Or if they did try to assault them, they could have been shot. But the trannies didn't have guns because they're told guns are scary. So they're trannies, and I know everything they believe at this point in their worldview. So no guns allowed. But they might have benefited from that. But we're at the point where Democrats created that mess. If you're a tranny voting Democrat, you kind of get what's coming to you. Like, you're voting for soft on crime. No, Donald Trump isn't erasing you from society. So if you want black thugs to remain on the streets, you don't want to incarcerate repeat offenders. You want to live in a crime-ridden area because Democrat policies encourage and enable it. That I don't know what else to tell you here. Start voting for America First politicians, and I will support your access to gun rights again. But for the time being, all trannies should be denied access to have guns. If you are caught carrying a weapon as a transgender individual, a mentally unwell man, I don't know what the crime is for that. Can we at least say 10 years? I'm just making up numbers here. Then you go to prison for 10 years. You have an illegal firearm, and then Hunter Biden can join you in the cell, by the way. So that is all this is. When they say we don't want thoughts and prayers, we need more than that. What they're really saying is we just want complete gun grabbing. The criminals in the cities, they'll still have guns. These tranny shooters, they'll still have access to guns. The criminals will still have access to guns. Don't worry about that. You, the law-abiding American citizen, you will no longer have access to guns because, as we have seen throughout history, that allows us to steamroll populations that are not able to defend themselves. You can look at Rhodesia and look at South Africa. I got to make a plug for our Substack, theamericantribune.news. Check it out. They take all your weapons and then they enforce just horrific things upon you as a white population. All right, but I do agree that thoughts and prayers aren't enough. I don't know why we still have this conversation when a school shooting occurs. There's a real simple answer to stopping school shooting. It's to stop making them soft targets. School shootings will always happen so long as Democrats are terrified of inanimate objects known as firearms, and they refuse to keep kids safe. Minneapolis public schools, by the way, folks, they removed police in 2020 after George Floyd overdosed on drugs. Where I worked at the time then, I was in Brooklyn Center, so I was a couple miles up the road from my Minneapolis place, working as an assistant principal. 2020 happens, George Floyd ODs. We removed SROs, the school resource officers, the Brooklyn police that would come into the building, patrol, read books with kids, play at recess with them. Not scary at all, keep our schools safe. We ended our contract with Brooklyn Center Police. And guess what? As soon as the police were gone, do you know how many guns were left in the building to defend us from bad guys? 0. Minneapolis Public Schools ended its contract with the Minneapolis Police Department. There were no police in the school because of idiots and just demons like Jacob Frey. Do you want to keep schools safe? Stop making them the easiest target imaginable. Unarmed children? If I'm a bad guy in the world and I'm thinking, what's the best place for me to go where there will be zero resistance? Of course you would say a school. Why wouldn't you go to a school? I know that there are no guns there, and I know that there are children there. They're not going to fight back against a grown adult. If you want to keep schools safe, you are right. Thoughts and prayers aren't enough. We need to disarm every tranny in America, and we need to place a military vet, a police officer, a retiree that believes in keeping kids safe. We need to station them at every doorway in every school. How about that? Instead of screaming about how these woke teachers that take entire summers off and get every paid holiday and have great health benefits and retirement plans. Instead of complaining about teachers with zero accountability getting paid more, you could have a kid not read when they enter your room and a kid still not reading when they leave your room, but you deserve to get paid more because it's hard work. Instead of paying teachers more, how about we reallocate funding for protection for our kids? We will have, I hate saying this, there will be more school shootings. There will be more school shootings until we decide as a nation to make schools safe for our kids. And with Democrats in charge, with Jacob Frey in charge saying we're going to remove guns, that is the opposite. That is the exact opposite. I made the point earlier when Jason Robertson said Democrats hate Christians. Oh, shoot, we got to show the comments on stage. How Democrats represent all things that are evil. Not a single policy makes sense or is good for individuals or society. Add this to the never-ending list. It is a never-ending list of bad ideas that Democrats have, and by bad I mean evil, in an inverse from good and just and moral and righteous. They want less guns in society for you. They want less police, and they basically want gangs and thugs and bad guys and murderers, would-be murderers, to have a monopoly on force. That is the society that they are looking to create. It is absolutely awful here. And again, you cannot stress enough how much Democrats hate Christians. Jacob Frey, mad that a Christian is praying, mad that kids were praying in general. Why didn't your prayers protect you? Because that's not how it works. But it's such a despicable comment all around. I got a segue here. We've been doing this for 37 minutes. I've only covered the first story. I want to get to this as well. Again, let me just bookend right here. I am radical in that I no longer believe in absolute rights. You no longer have a right to own a firearm if you identify as something you are not. That would be a starting point for rolling back rights. And no, I am not going to have an argument to say, well, the Constitution doesn't say, right to bear arms shall not be infringed unless you're a tranny. Doesn't matter anymore, folks. We live in a different world right now. Do you want to live in a safe society, a sane society, a healthy society? Then you need to start seriously looking at who is afforded the opportunity to function in that society. We remove people from society all the time. They murder somebody, boom, they're gone. If you are going to be a member of the transgender community, you have proven that you do not deserve a firearm. We have seen too many examples of this. I don't need to have that debate anymore. You can call me a tyrant. You can call me a fascist. You can call me an authoritarian. Does not matter. This is a radical view today. It needs to be normalized tomorrow. In 5 years, if not a single tranny had possessed a firearm in the country, would we be worse off at all? I can't think of a way. I cannot think of a single example how it would be worse off here. My goal is to make a functioning, healthy, high-trust society. That is how you start. All right, let's move on to this story here as we talk about immigration. I'm just going to touch on this because we're going really long on time today. News came out that there were 55 million visa holders in the United States. Now, X had to do a little community note, and fine, because the number gets thrown around a lot. So I'm going to read the community note here. It says the 55 million figure refers to the total number of foreigners worldwide who currently hold valid U.S. visas, not the number of people living in the United States on visas. So in 2024, 77% of visas issued were for tourist and business purposes. I feel like those two sentences don't exactly line up. I honestly don't care. If you had said 1% of the 55 million visa holders lived in the United States, I would still say that's too much. Why are we issuing 55 million visas, and why are any of them allowed to live here at this point? Folks, the next radical notion that we've got to just disabuse ourselves of, this just needs to be a normal reaction. Immigration is the biggest threat to America right now. Demography is destiny, yes. We already agreed that illegal immigration has to come to an end. Build a massive wall, issue mass arrest of illegals, deport all of them. I don't even care where you send them. You can send Kilmar Abrego Garcia to Uganda. I don't care. They just don't need to be in this country. You give illegals two options. Self-deport, at our expense, by the way. I'll be very generous here. Self-deport at our expense. We will fly you first class to your home nation. I am totally fine with that. Take your entire family, extended family. I will pay for all of that. Or we will come get you, and then we're going to send you a bill after you get flown home. Those are your two options at this point. So every illegal needs to go home. The only people that disagree with that are Democrats, because even though they would never house an illegal themselves, they think that you should be on the hook for it. Yeah, see, this is the other thing with Democrats too. I won't even debate this anymore with Democrats. I'm really making the show for Republican voters today to be like, no matter how radical you think you are, it's not enough. Because Democrats are out there saying, I would never house an illegal, take them to the doctor, pay their bills, feed them, whatever, drive them around. but they're good people, so they're going to vote to make sure that you do it. So I don't have time for that argument anymore. Deport every last illegal. This should not be a controversial position. This is America for Americans. The end. I have no other country to go to in the entire world. Nowhere else to go. I was born here. I will die here. My kids will be born and they'll die here. They are Americans. They live in America. You as an illegal immigrant have a place to call home, and it is not America. It's anywhere else in the rest of the world here. You have a society that you ruined. Go back and fix it. I don't need to pay for you anymore. There's no such thing as asylee anymore. You are simply coming here for economic benefits. And to be fair, I would do the same thing if I were you. I would probably come here as well. Oh my goodness, I got a segue here. I got the nunted, grab them by the nussy. I'm turning 40 tomorrow, guy. I don't know what any of that means. But MAGA fully supports and defends P words, and I got to break this down. Nunt, I know you're not going to stick around for my comment here. That is my lane now. I have a very simple question for Nunt. Anytime a Democrat, a tedious, suffering rube, talks about Donald Trump being on the Epstein list and he's the P word here, all you have to do is ask for receipts. Nunt, when did you start talking about the Epstein list? Was it 3 weeks ago when corporate media shills decided to make you outraged about Trump might be on the list? If you can show me the receipts, we'll go to the next question I have for you. But if a Democrat says that you support the P word, all you have to do is ask them, when did you start talking about the Epstein list? I remember getting called a conspiracy theorist when I would say years ago, this is going back years now, before Nunt ever heard of Jeffrey Epstein, saying that our government is most likely run by an elite group of pedos. I said that for years, and they look at you and they're like, you are literally insane. Take off the tinfoil, go to the asylum. That's what Nunt would have been telling me years ago. And then 3 weeks ago, corporate media made it okay to talk about P words running the show now because they might have a chance to get Donald Trump. Now, there are two possibilities. You tell me which is more likely. That Donald Trump is actually on the list committing these crimes against girls, and the establishment sat on it in 2016, sat on it in 2020, sat on it in 2024, the last time Donald Trump could ever run for office. And this is after, by the way, a bullet grazed his ear. So willing to go to any length possible to prevent him from taking the White House. And then once he's in as president for his second and final term after his third election, now we're going to release the information. Do you think that's the possibility, Nunt? And you might say Trump's in the same party. They're all doing the same thing. They were protecting themselves. Then why are they doing it now? Just a ruse for these brainwashed Democrats here. And by the way, defending the sex trafficking comment here, Nunt has no idea about this because he watches CNN, MSNBC. Joe Biden's administration, now that we're talking about immigration, this is a great segue here. The Biden administration allowed, I think, upwards of 20 million. Nobody knows how many illegals crossed our border. Nobody knows how many kids crossed our border. We do know that over 300,000 kids went missing from the border in Joe Biden's 4 years. Imagine that, guy. 4 years, 300,000 missing kids. We know that the Biden administration had a hotline for kids placed in homes with adults other than their biological parents. And we know that 65,000 phone calls to a hotline for kids placed in custody of other adults went unanswered. We don't even know how many phone calls did get answered. But I'm supposed to sit here and let Nunt tell me how I support child sex trafficking when the whole purpose of Joe Biden's open border was to condone, encourage, and facilitate as much human trafficking as possible. But I'm the bad guy for closing the border, finding and rescuing these kids, and making sure that they didn't go through the horrific abuse and handling by these coyotes and smugglers and human traffickers. This is the same guy that's probably mad at Donald Trump for deporting Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who is charged with, wait for it, human trafficking. So the next time some Democrat wants to tell you that you support the P word and you support the trafficking, just remind them that they voted for a continuation of Joe Biden's open borders, which was an excuse to facilitate the human trafficking at a scale that is simply unimaginable. We lost 300,000 kids. How many more kids do we know about, or did we find, or did we rescue that were in this human trafficking ring here? This is an absolute insane comment. I feel bad for people like that, but then I feel worse for people like me and the rest of my sane audience that have to share a country with this person. And if Nunt lives in Minnesota, for example, my vote is nullified. If Nunt lived in Minnesota, my vote would be completely nullified. We would cancel each other out. This is not a fair society. That is why, by the way, folks, last week, go to my episode from last week, and I ran down the list of why voting needs to be harder, because people like Nunt do not deserve the right to vote. They have no business voting. They can't even wake up and figure out what's real or not real. Why are they allowed to make decisions for the rest of us here? Go back and check it out. I think that was last Thursday's. It would have been August 21st here. Hour and a half. I talked about why voting should be harder. I talked about who should be allowed to vote here. Nunt is a perfect example of that. They will repeat every single talking point that they are spoon-fed next week. I promise Nunt right now this as well. If media came out tomorrow, if they had to report that Donald Trump wasn't on the list, Jeffrey Epstein was an absolute hoax, he would drop this so fast. Like, can you imagine? They're like, turns out the CIA created Jeffrey Epstein. He's not real. We did this as a ruse to distract you from us stealing your money and doing whatever else with it. He'd be like, moving on. He would never acknowledge he was wrong. He would never admit that he was lied to. I bet Nunt has never confronted the fact that he thought masks worked, that the vaccine, I can't say that word on YouTube here, that other techniques and measures worked. And now that everything is coming out saying like, oh, it turns out the therapeutics were okay. Yeah, it turns out we made up 6 feet. Yeah, it turns out if we had done nothing, it would have been better for people. He'll never confront that. These people will never accept they're lied to. They just believe whatever they're told in the moment. Nunt, thanks for boosting the count in the algorithm. I can't even thank you for watching. I regret that you believe what you do and have a right to vote in this country. But whatever lane I'm in right now, the America First lane, I will proudly wear that. Yes, Nunt, I count myself as an America First patriot. I want America to be safe and prosperous for Americans. Everything I'm talking about today would lead to that. If we deny people access to firearms that would do harm on us, if we remove people from this country that don't belong to be here and are a drain on the system, that would make America better as well. If we prosecute criminals and start executing criminals more, I'm going to touch on that at the very end here of the show here, that would make America better as well. I have 3 very specific ways in which America will be made better. Today you call it radical. Tomorrow it will be called normal. That is my goal here. This guy can't come up with a single thing he believes in that is good for any individual, that is good for any society in the short or long term here. And I know Nunt's gone already. He's not listening to these comments, but this is what we're up against, folks. This is the troll. Every single time when I'm on my show with Jason tomorrow, we will get these same comments on Facebook. I'm actually just amazed that this comment is on YouTube. Hey, look at that. We got 2 viewers on YouTube right now. Nunt is one of them. This is all they have. These angry trolls. This is my job. Part of my job includes podcasting. I am working right now. I'm having a great time at work. I don't know what you're doing, but this is my job. I love it. I don't know what Nunt is doing. It's 9:30 Central Time on a Thursday, and he's angry writing, just providing some angry comment on a random YouTube stream. Nothing about that is healthy. Nothing about that is healthy. And again, they do every buzzword imaginable. So they're doing MAGA, P word, the child trafficking. They can't defend that. Like, do you have proof? Do you have evidence? Do you have anything to back up that assertion there? They don't have anything about that. They're like, well, CNN told me that he was on the Epstein list. Yes, because he ran in the same circle as Jeffrey Epstein. He was a rich billionaire in South Florida. Of course he's on the list. And the trafficking thing, I already talked about how Biden's border, it was wide open to facilitate child sex trafficking. You have people out there that they voted for Biden. They know what Biden did, and they simply don't care. All right, I got to move on from Nunt here. What a waste of air. What a waste of time I spent on this moron. Again, go back and watch the podcast from last week. That is people like Nunt that prove my point time and again. Voting is too easy. It needs to be heavily restricted. I guess that ties into my idea of radicalization here. Normalize America First radicalization. We will never have, folks, a functioning society where everybody has a right to vote. It simply can't happen. Number one, Nunt represents half the country right there. Half the country already doesn't know what's good for them. They voted for Joe Biden. They voted for Kamala Harris. They voted for the evils that pursued that and followed that. Why do they need to vote? If you're voting for a Democrat in 2020 and 2025, hey, we got Fally in here. Fally's here for a quick listen. Fally, I'm just recapping everything that is radical today will be normal tomorrow here. But again, voting, you'll never have a good country where everybody gets the right to vote. People will vote because they've been brainwashed by the media. They will vote to steal someone else's money because they feel entitled to it, reparations. If you're an Indian, the DNC just had an Indian go out and do a land acknowledgement. Blacks are out there saying I need reparations. You got the poors out there saying I deserve money from the wealthy because reasons. And then you got other people, this kind of goes back to Democrats, they think they're better people because they vote to steal your money. I was hanging out with a friend this past weekend, completely brainwashed normie Dem, thinks he's so smart, but he votes Democrat. He was telling the story about how his community is growing. He lives in a second-ring suburb. It's developing quickly because it is, right now it's white, upper middle class. So of course it's a nice community. Keep voting, buddy, for your Section 8 housing and keep promoting diversity. That will not be a nice neighborhood in a long time. He's like, my home values have gone up. I mean, just wait, you vote Democrat, it'll go back down. But he's like, yeah, we need new schools. So I voted to approve the levy because I'm a good person because our kids need school. And I told him, you think you're a better person? You believe in schools getting built and the district expanding. You voted to steal other people's money. Why do you get to vote to steal other people's money? A, that's just not how it should work. I will decide how I want to spend my money. But B, it doesn't make you a better person. You voted yes on a levy that you'll have a negligible impact on. And I would have voted no. And I said, why are we giving schools more money? We throw more money at them and they never do anything with it. That is just, that's the baseline response. And he called me heartless. You don't want kids to have a new school? You want them in crowded classrooms? Yeah. I want their parents to pull them out of government school systems. Whatever makes government schools as miserable as possible, I am here for it. But this guy thought he was a better person for voting to raise everyone else's taxes. You just don't get to do that. So no, you don't get to vote anymore either in my perfect world here. If you're voting to steal more of my money for yourself or steal it for other people under the guise of being a good person, if you're nunt and you get brainwashed every day, we might as well have CNN get 50 million votes in this country. Why does nunt even bother going to the polls? Just let CNN fill in 50 million ballots and say, well, this is our audience for this year. They're all voting Democrat because they believe all the lies we tell them. It's absolutely insane. So no, voting needs to be harder. Not improve my point here. That is another element of the radicalization. We can't have everyone voting in America if we want to keep America. It's just not possible. Just not possible. There's too many brainwashed people, low IQ people, people with misguided intentions at best. So no, it's just not going to work. You got to restrict voting to people that know what they're doing and can think long term. They need to be able to think long term, and most people can't do that. All right, let's get on to the immigration story here. I'm going to play the video clip from Scotland. These young girls had to defend themselves with knives and axes. They have become the meme of the week, and rightfully so, because Scotland, the UK politics have gotten so bad, men have gotten so weak over there that little girls are forced to defend themselves from assailants, and it gets worse because then authorities arrested the girls for brandishing these weapons. Insane story. And again, you are not radical enough on the issue of immigration here. They all need to go home.
Yes, you have a knife.
You don't. Hey, I'm fucking 12 me. You're fucking bad and
Why are you fucking with us?
These are fucking kid bashers.
Show the knife. Show the knife.
Get
Show
the
the knife.
fuck away from us.
Show the knife. Show the knife.
Don't touch her.
That's it. That's it. Show the knife.
Get my way.
Show the knife. That's it.
Don't fucking touch my little sister. She ain't fucking 12. Wait till I fucking catch you. She's fucking 12 and you just battered me, mate. Wait till I fucking catch you.
Yeah, show the knife. Maracha.
Don't touch her, you're to me. Don't touch her.
All right, I'm a father of two young girls. This resonates a little closer to home. I'm an American as well. I'm a human being. Everything about this, no matter what level you watch this video at, you should be equally outraged. Can you imagine having to raise, I think the girls are 12 here, and this is what they are enduring. Now, do we shelter children forever? Absolutely not. Do children need to be aware of the real world? Yes. We got a cat the other week. I don't know. What else do you say? I got a cat. But I have a 5-year-old. She just turned 5. And she was like, what if Sparkles runs away? And yes, the cat's name is Sparkles. It's a boy, by the way. When you have two girls, it doesn't matter. You have a cat, and it's going to be Sparkles regardless. She's like, what if it runs away? What if it gets eaten by a bird? Because I said Sparkles is little. A hawk might come in. An eagle might come in. Coyote might get it. Raccoon might get it. The neighbor's bigger cat might get it. Might get run over by a car in the road. It might just run away. We might never see Sparkles again. Yeah, he's cute, and he's been here for a few weeks, but he might not be here tomorrow. And she just looked at me and was like, well, we would just get a new cat then, right? Like, just did not miss a beat. She was just like, well, that sounds about right. Because I explained to her the animal kingdom is ruthless. I watched this cat last night toy with a frog for 15 minutes. My wife walked into the garage. It's a garage cat right now. I'm just standing in there with a bottle of water, and I'm watching the cat paw the thing and, flick it up, put it in its mouth, toss it, do its thing. My wife's like, what are you doing? And then she called me. She's like, you're such a boy. I was like, yeah, I mean, every dude would just stare at this as well. This is fascinating. This is the animal kingdom. And so I've tried to impress upon my kids, like, yeah, life is cold out there. You can rely on dad. You can rely on mom. You can rely on each other. You can rely on yourself. Turns out you can rely on yourself. But the animal kingdom, no rules, and it's not even good or bad. This is just what they do. This is survival. The cat was bred. The cat exists to play with frogs and eat frogs. The frog exists to not get eaten by these frogs and populate as well. Like, this is it. There are no rules. There are no morals. This is just the animal kingdom at work. It does bring up an interesting point, which my first was youngest. And I was just trying to be easy about it. She's like, lions are mean because, they roar and they eat animals. And this other deer is nice because he eats grass. And then I realized, like, what am I doing? This is not the way to raise kids. The lion is not mean for eating animals. The lion is doing what lions do. The deer is doing what deer do. Like, there's no mean or evil or good or bad. This is just animals. Humanity has morality. That's what separates us from the animal kingdom, or you like to think that it does until you visit like DC or Chicago and you see how some of these people live. You're like, oh, we are back in the animal kingdom. So I'm done with that. But she's not sheltered. So the point of that was, I'm not sheltering her. Yes, people die. We talk about heaven all the time. We talk about how grandparents are getting old. She has already been coached to accept that all 4 of her grandparents might not be here in 5 years or less. This is how the world works. She's noticing that dad's got some grays. Yeah, dad is 40. Dad has to sit against the couch now when he plays on the floor because his back hurts. People age. People get sick. People get old, and people pass on to heaven. It's a wonderful thing when you go to heaven because you get to get reunited with your family and your friends, and you get to see people again that you loved. It's sad that we won't have them anymore, but it's not forever. You will be reunited with them again. So we've had real conversations with a 5-year-old. I'm pretty impressed with that. But this kind of exposure, no child deserves. No child needs to be exposed to LGBTQ grooming. No child at the age of 12 needs to be exposed to a would-be sexual assailant, an immigrant assailant, when they're walking home somewhere. I don't know what these girls are doing. It is irrelevant. They should be allowed to walk somewhere without A, feeling like they need to bring a knife with them, and B, having to brandish that knife. If you are not outraged at politicians and immigrants, and yes, they are the same. Politicians brought them here knowing what would happen. Immigrants are here just doing what immigrants do. We talked about the animal kingdom a second ago. Honestly, you look at the animal, like, these immigrants don't know any better. It is evil because they're human beings, and we can apply that judgment upon them. But I honestly think they're operating at that animal level here. I am a third world subhuman immigrant here. I only know one thing, and that is to assault young girls, because that is my culture. That is my genetics. But again, why do I have to live with that? Fine, go do that in your own nation of origin. Go terrorize, as sad as it is, like, just don't do it to my citizens, my girls in my country. But she got arrested, and the immigrant was coaxing her. This is how it's just more insane. The immigrant knows that nothing will happen to him. Seen enough examples. He's got all the networks there, all the NGOs or whatever they call them over in Scotland. He knows exactly what's going to happen to the girl. You can't show a weapon. Now, I can go terrorize you, threaten you, harass you. So much for Me Too now anymore. If you're an immigrant, see, the totem of leftism is just insane. White guy doing it bad. Cat whistling bad. Would-be sexual assailant immigrant good when they're going after the white girl here. So here we have our intersectional politics in play again. Number one, the fact that you have created a society where young girls have to bring weapons with them when they walk on the street, that already tells me you have absolutely failed here. These politicians are evil and deserve to burn in hell for the rest of their lives. At the very least, they need to be sent to prison forever here. I don't know the prescription for that. I don't have a prescription for jailing every last politician that voted to import the rest of the third world to Scotland, to England, happening in America right now. But arresting. Imagine being, and I don't know what the terms are over there, imagine being the district attorney or the prosecutor or whoever is making these decisions, and you're like, you know what? I saw this video of a Muslim, I assume he's Muslim, by the way, of an immigrant man harassing young kids. And then I see the kids trying to defend themselves or, frighten him away, saying, I have a larger knife than you. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to arrest the girls because Scotland laws say you can't have weapons like that. You can't intimidate somebody like that. Like, what kind of world are we living in where that is the actual thought process? A, that there are those laws in the books. B, that you would arrest a 12-year-old girl for trying to protect herself from a violent immigrant. Everything about this should piss you off. When I say I'm radical for wanting all immigrants gone, folks, I'm not selectively choosing video clips like this. We have seen enough stories. You can go back to the Haitians. You can go back to the LA riots. Everywhere you look, immigrants are no longer interested in assimilating. They didn't even ask to be here. I am pretty sure at this point, we go out of our way, and by we, I mean the elites, the corrupt actors, the establishment, NGOs. They go out of their way to handpick these people and say, you would be great in this small Midwest rural community. I got to get to Fally's comment here. I want to respect the comments. Fally says it is hard to have respect for people who come to this country for free, and then crap all over the citizens. Fally, I am calling this position radical. I think this is just a normal sentiment at this point. Why should I allow this? And this goes back to free speech or free guns or flag burning. I don't even know if I can touch on the flag burning today. It's been an hour here. Just let it be known that I fully support what Trump's doing with flag burning. No, why do you have a right to do all that? Why do you get to demoralize American citizens? Why do you get to display your antipathy towards America, everything that made this country great, especially as an immigrant, but certainly as a citizen as well? Do you not realize where you live and how fortunate you are to have been born here? And as an immigrant, to get dropped off here and immediately hate it and go after the people that welcomed you. And by welcomed, I mean we had no choice in the matter, but she was leaving him alone. He's not leaving her alone. I love Fally's comment here. Come to Montana, try that crap. Walk in my house will be the last thing you do. Fally makes a great point. I was going to say this as well about the video here. This young girl would have been justified to throw that axe right between his eyes. I have come to the point now. There was a story, I think, in Colorado. A Space Force officer was charged with murder because some young hooligan stole his car. He pursued them, and then I think he shot at the kids as they were running away and killed one. Fully defensible. If anytime you go after someone's property or threaten them like this, I don't care how imminent of danger you are. If you are going to play this game, then you need to be ended. This at government levels, that means executing criminals, and at individual levels, that means having the right to blast away at people making life and society worse. I don't need to be harassed anymore by immigrants. I don't need to see people's cars stolen out of their driveways anymore. If the government's going to, A, import these people, and B, let it happen, then there is only one option remaining, and that is self-defense. And I equate property and life in the same little camp. It's under the same umbrella. You going after someone's car, that might be their livelihood, their ticket to their livelihood. They have to commute to work. They have to get from point A to point B. They got to drop their kids off at school. You need a car in America. You're going to steal someone's car, their lifeline. You deserve to be shot and killed. And so that man is a hero. I hope Trump can pardon him out in Colorado as well. These girls right here, charged under laws in Scotland, absolute vile and evil that is happening right now. I don't think she would have, in my world, been justified in just ending that immigrant right now. That is a man that could not function in his home country, his animal, subhuman, third world home country. He certainly has no business functioning in Scotland. All he has to do as an immigrant when he arrives in Scotland is say, thank you. Thank you. I will make the best of this. I want my kids to grow up and speak English, and I want them to be well-adjusted and moral. Can't do that. He says, you know what? I can't not harass young white girls. That is in my nature. That's who I am. Like the lion that just eats other animals. He's evil and immoral for doing this. But again, I don't think these people can function at a higher level. This is just basic. I see young white girl. I go do this because I'm an animal. That's all these people are. Why do we want them in our countries? So radical to want every immigrant gone. In 5 years, I said at the start of the show, this will be a normal position. Again, you're going to listen to this podcast in 5 years. Maybe in 5 years, I'll revisit this podcast and be like, how did we age? I'm going to say I wasn't radical enough. I think in 5 years, I will not have been radical enough. But my positions, I got to recap the show, folks. I got things I got to do today. We've been going over an hour here. I love that Fally was in the chant. Nut never came back. That's unfortunate. Nut's not going to change their mind. I just need to restrict Nut's ability to vote. I can't bother changing all these people's minds anymore. I just need to silence them. No more vote. Go be a moron. Go think these horrible, stupid things. You just don't get to make decisions for the rest of the country anymore. And I'll live with that compromise. But running down the list here, number one, every last immigrant needs to go home. If you're on a visa, revoked, adios. If you're an illegal, that's an automatic. Donald Trump needs to deport every single illegal. If there is one illegal left over in 2028, mission not accomplished here. Every illegal needs to go. Legal immigrants here, again, if you're on a student visa, a tourist visa, a work visa, an H-1B visa, folks, go to the government website to see all of the different classifications of visas. The program just needs to be ended. Goodbye. No more visas. It is now expired. You need to fly home. You will be considered an illegal and immediately deported otherwise. Fally says, I am spot on. Fally, welcome aboard here. We are Radical today, and we will be normal tomorrow. Appreciate you tuning in the show and commenting, Valley, by the way. But every immigrant just needs to go. Are there good immigrants? Yes. I worked in St. Cloud, Minnesota for a couple years. I have worked, folks, you will notice, in some of the worst schools imaginable. I think I got someone at my house here. I got to wrap up this show. But I worked in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I worked with a Somali woman. I think she was a single mom of like 4. Her kids went to the school. She had a little baby. And I remember she missed school one day to go get naturalized. She wrote me the longest letter, just appreciative and gushing, and how she was so thankful to have met someone like me, worked alongside me, someone like me that supported her. Folks, I am the nicest human being when I am interacting with you. I will always treat you like an individual. This Somali woman was making the best of her time in America. Her kids were a little crazy because, I mean, you have that many little Somali kids running around and they're incubating in their little own culture there. It's never going to end well for the most part. Now, there are exceptions. Fantastic lady. I am sorry to say that she would have to get swept up too. We don't have time to go through 100 million immigrants in this country and say, let me go through the list. Let me interview everyone in your life. Let me look at your records here. We just can't do it anymore. Joe Biden and the Democrats violated the contract that we had, unwritten, unspoken contract. There will be just a set amount of people in this country here. Yes, they will do some labor. Yes, they will do some of this. Yes, they will do some of that over there. And we put up with it because it was a small minority, but we've reached the tipping point where there are too many in here and there's no going back short of just getting rid of all of them. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the time. We don't have the resources to vet every last immigrant in this country. It needs to be blank slated at this point. It is a yes or no. Are you an immigrant? Then you are either gone or you are here, depending on how you answer that question. And that is the Democrats' fault. It is Democrats' fault. And by the way, it is Obama's fault. It is Biden's fault that we had any of these Somalis here in the first place. I might have to do a Somali-only episode. This woman was fantastic. She was kind to me, thoughtful to me. I was kind to her. But unfortunately, I don't have time anymore to vet every last immigrant in this country here. And that's a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy. But who are we going to side with here? Are we going to be kind to the cruel or cruel to the kind? You can say this is a wonderful Somali woman, but then you have to ignore that there are wonderful Americans already here getting shafted by their presence. So something has to be done about that. No does not mean. It is simply an adult conversation, a real take on the situation here. I forgot my recap. Oh, yeah, trannies don't get guns anymore. Flag burning, you go to jail. I won't even debate that point anymore. People on X were like, okay, bootlicker. I got called a bootlicker because I wanted to throw flag burners in prison. I'll live with that too. You can call me a radical today. You will agree with me in a couple years here. No one burning a flag is doing it for good reasons, by the way. No one doing it loves America. It is all political. It is motivated to demoralize you, to show how much they hate this country. Why should we put up with that? I'll just ask that question. Why should we put up with that? Our society is allowed to have symbols that represent the greatness of our society. You should have a little deference to those symbols here. And if you don't appreciate the country you're living in, it's really simple. Go to jail or leave. That's it. But if you're going to be in this country, there are certain rules you have to abide by. All right, folks, with that being said, I got to get out of here. We have run long today. I had so many thoughts on this. Appreciate you tuning in. Fally was on fire. Jason was in the chat earlier today. Nunt never got back to us. It's for the best here. Nunt is probably was mom's basement. Can we make a mom's basement joke for Nunt? Nah, we'll do that next time. All right, with that being said, folks, thanks for tuning in. I am back tomorrow, Friday, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern with Jason Robertson for Freedom from the Press. You can find that on our Facebook pages, Twitter pages, YouTube pages, Rumble pages. We'll be everywhere. Otherwise, this show is back next Tuesday, 8:30, 9:30. We'll go live when we feel like it, but we'll be back next Tuesday. Other than that, we'll see you tomorrow for Freedom from the Press. And if not, have a great weekend, folks.